As of right now, there is just one debate left on the calendar before Election Day. On Tuesday night, vice presidential candidates J.D. Vance and Tim Walz will face off in what may be the last chance for Americans to directly contrast their campaigns' messages. Now, since joining their respective tickets, Vance and Walz have taken very different approaches to campaigning. While Tim Walz has focused on hitting the trail, spending way less time with the press and doing interviews, it seems like J.D. Vance is always talking to the media, often with pretty disastrous results. In the polling average, Vance's net favorability rating is more than 11 points underwater. Meanwhile, Walz is holding steady at 3.8 points net favorable. It's not all that surprising when you consider the way that J.D. Vance has taken on this role, where he basically acts like a flamethrower messaging. He will say the most negative, wildly unpopular thing, no matter how much it makes people dislike him. It goes all the way back to his now infamous line, back when he was just before joining the ticket, about childless cat ladies.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies.
I don't like this. I don't like to admit this. I don't like that this is a fact of life. But if you are a psycho and you want to make headlines, you realize that our schools are soft targets. You have a lot of people saying, my pets are being abducted, or geese at the city pond are being abducted and slaughtered right in front of us.
Today, we got new reporting about more instances of Vance putting his foot in his mouth, although these might anger his running mate even more than his potential voters. The Washington Post obtained messages Vance sent to an acquaintance harshly criticizing then-President Trump in February of 2020. Vance wrote in part, quote, "Trump has just so thoroughly failed to deliver on his economic populism." And another, a few months later, Vance predicted, "I think Trump will probably lose." I certainly hope we get to hear Vance try to wriggle his way out of this one at the debate just a few short days from now. Michelle Goldberg is an opinion columnist for the New York Times. Margaret Tlaib is the director of Syracuse University's Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, where she's been running focus groups, most recently with young male voters. She's also a senior contributor at Axios, and they join me now. Michelle, I have come to view, I think some of what J.D. Vance is doing is not intentional, right? Like, a lot of the stuff that people don't like about him were things he was saying in right-wing outlets when he's trying to win a very right-wing primary for Ohio Senate. But since he's become the nominee, he hasn't changed. And I think of it basically a kamikaze mission, which is, people are not going to like me and I don't care. I'll be like low on favorability, but I'm going to deliver this kind of poison into the discourse every day. I don't know if it's effective or not, but how do you read it?
Well, I would say, I think that is certainly going to be his approach in the debate, right? Because people don't like him, so he can be mean, he can be vicious. And what he has to do is right now, Tim Walz is one of the most popular politicians in the country, right? Even after all sorts of smears about his military service, attacks on his family and the like. And so what J.D. Vance has to do is just drag Tim Walz down into the mud with him. And I think that he will probably be pretty vicious and pretty skillful in trying to do that. What I hope Tim Walz does, you mentioned this Washington Post story. I think this is such a bombshell. And I really think that the political media and the political world is underreacting to this, because we all knew that J.D. Vance, said all these things about Donald Trump, compared him to Hitler, compared him to heroin. And his story for why he's now on the ticket is that Donald Trump's presidency changed his mind. Right. Donald Trump's presidency proved him wrong. So here he is saying that Donald Trump failed in the thing that Donald Trump's supporters kind of point to as the central reason why he should be returned to office. This is just, I think this undoes the entire conversion narrative that J.D. Vance has tried to spin. And it's so incumbent on Tim Walz to make that clear to people, and not just to make that clear to people, but just as Kamala Harris kind of needled Donald Trump when she was on stage with him, I think that Tim Walz can do this remotely, because I don't think Donald Trump knew about these quotes. And he's not going to be happy to find out that this was J.D. Vance's verdict on him.
Yeah, the running mate secretly declared your presidency a failure is a pretty big story. Margaret, you've been doing these focus groups, particularly with young men, and J.D. Vance, I guess, counts as a young man in politics. Tim Walz a little less so. But I do think they're both sort of chosen and whether this is borne out by the data or not, to sort of appeal to certain conceptions of masculinity, certain kinds of male voters. I wonder what you think undecided voters are going to be looking for or taking away from these two guys when they face off next week.
I mean, Chris, the most recent group of young men voters who we were talking to, and these are our focus groups with Syracuse, Engages, and NBC News, were sort of split among men who lean toward Trump and men who lean toward Kamala Harris. And the trend that we saw very clearly was that those voters who were still skeptical but lean toward Trump are doing so either because they really like Trump or because they don't like Harris. But the other group, the voters who were leaning towards Harris, were leaning towards Harris because they don't like Trump. It's not Harris in particular that they're enamored with. In many cases, they see her as the lesser of two evils. I think with this debate coming up, normally vice presidential debates are not hugely consequential because people are not voting for the number two person on the ticket. But the gender gap between Trump and Harris is so significant. And there isn't really, there's a really different dynamic with the vice presidential candidates with the lower half of the ticket, where you see both, you see not just with women, but with men polling that shows that Tim Walz is actually the more popular candidate. So it's possible that he has the ability to help solidify some of those voters who were men and leaning towards Harris, but not completely confident. On the other hand, Vance really does have an opportunity to take Tim Walz down a peg or two. And so the dynamic I'm going to be looking for is sort of the flip of what both men are known for. Are we going to see more heart and relatability from J.D. Vance in this debate? Are we going to see more substance from Tim Walz?
Well, or more cutthroatness. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing, is like how much he goes on the attack. And I do think, Michelle, there's one more case that hasn't been made here. Donald Trump is the oldest guy to ever run for president since Biden dropped out. His brains are leaking out of his ears, metaphorically speaking, not literally. He's losing his grasp. J.D. Vance has a very good chance of running the country. Like, as an actuarial matter, like, he's not just some emissary messaging. The guy could have the nuclear codes, and I think that's a worthwhile thing to press. Like, is this guy ready for that is a genuine question that I don't think people have been talking about enough.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. The possibility that J.D. Vance could be president in 2026 or 2027 is something that we have kind of collectively failed to both reckon with and I think make clear to people that this is a very real possibility. And it's strange because I think the media did a good job of both dissecting the kind of Joe Biden's various, the way that Joe Biden had faded. And I think it was pretty clear that a vote for Joe Biden was at least potentially a vote for a President Kamala Harris. But people just haven't thought through what it would mean to have this vicious and dishonest and deeply misogynist and also deeply inexperienced figure as the President of the United States.
Guy's been a senator for 2 years. All his jobs before that were given to him by Peter Thiel. With the nuclear codes, Michelle Goldberg, Margaret Talleb, thank you both.